everyone, how are you doing today? It's the best reads of 2021, so without further ado, let's get straight into it. Start talking about the books that made me mushy and gooey and happy and excited, and the books that I absolutely adored this year. These are just going to be said in whatever order they are on the pile or on the list. I'm going to kickstart this list with a favourite author of mine. Pretty much most of you will already know who this author is. I talk about her a lot. I've plugged her books everywhere I can. And that author is Nalini Singh. Yes, I know, who's even shocked at this point that I'm talking about Nalini. But this book is Archangel's Light. It is book 13 or 14 in the Guild Hunter series, and I can't really talk about it too much because with it being so far into the series, I risk giving away super big spoilers, including the actual who the book is about and whose story and sort of romance we are discussing. All I will say is that it was a 10-year wait for this book and for these two to come together and realise that they are in fact in love with each other. And holy cow, did she deliver. Could have been pushed a little bit further, not gonna lie, a little bit more could have been done for my personal tastes, but in true Nalini style, I laughed, I cried, I had to try so hard not to squeal and wake up the entire house when I read the scene, that scene at 2 o'clock in the morning, and just wanted to squeal like an excited little schoolgirl. And I couldn't because people have to be up for work and I'm not one of... Yes, did not disappoint, loved it. I think it got definitely a 5-star. Can't say much more because spoilers. But seriously, if you haven't yet checked Nalini's work out and you like paranormal, you like vampires, you like angels and things like that, and you like a really unique take on how vampires are made and how the world with vampires in works, definitely check out her Guild Hunter series. You will not be disappointed. Next on the list is the Petta Prisoner series. So this isn't just one book, this is a series of 3. I'm not going to go into it too detailed because if you go to my playlists onto my autumn wrap up, I did do a full 5-minute breakdown of what these books are about and why I love them so much. But essentially, you've got this concubine who is being controlled by King Midas, and she's been led to believe that he is her saviour and that she is his precious, and essentially she gets dragged into a load of politics and gets kidnapped by the enemy and starts to realise that maybe the life she's been living is a lie and starting to realise that she is actually a victim. It's a powerful, powerful trilogy of someone who has been abused and traumatised, taking their life back, making a stand, saying no more, and in the process discovering themselves and a new romance. And it's so beautiful. The first book is a little bit slow, but then the second book was really well paced and had a fantastic build up, and the third book, I think I devoured it in about 4 hours flat. It was so good, and when I finished that one and realised there's going to be a 4th book, I nearly cried. So I would definitely recommend this book. Just bear in mind, it is not YA, it is very adult and does deal with PTSD, sexual assault, abuse, Stockholm Syndrome, kidnap, and a lot of other adult themes. So please do keep that in mind. The next book on the list is These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. This book is the book that has made me realise that maybe, just maybe, I can like books about fairies and fae and the elves. Just maybe. Because I tried Cool Prince, didn't enjoy it. I've tried Deal with a Elf King, didn't enjoy it. I've tried multiple books centred around elves and the fae, not really been a fan. But this book had everything that I could want. It had a dark and twisty romance, it had a friends to lovers, it had a sister that's been taken, it had a thief, an assassin, and it was everything that I would want in a fae book. And the thing that I like about this is I normally cannot stand anything to do with love triangles or love these. as Zoe's All Booked calls them, and I thoroughly agree with her. I normally think they're trash, I normally want to get rid of them, I don't want to go near them, but this book was brilliant because even though there is the hint of a love triangle, if not cemented, it's definitely building to, it did it so well, and the romance didn't take over the plot. And that's what I like the most about this book. The plot stayed centred to the character and her goals. It didn't become about the mushy romance, and I'm here for it. And it follows the Seelie and the Unseelie court, and I like how it's got that whole concept of no fae is actually good. So even though the Seelie court is the light court, they're still not exactly great and they're still not exactly light. And yes, this was very dark. I would say this kind of borderlines that toe between being YA and being more new adult or even adult. I'd say that a couple of notches on the spice scale and this would have been bumped up. But it was really well done and had fantastic characters that I give a shit about. Even the bad guys I want to know more about. So yes, this is definitely one and I cannot wait. I've requested the second book on NetGalley and I really hope I get it, and I cannot wait for the next book to come out next year. Next is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I originally read Red, White and Royal Blue last year and I loved it. And then when I found out that she was releasing a Sapphic book, I was all for it. The only thing that made me not want to read this is there is a bit of a time travel kind of element to it, which I'm not a fan of. I don't like time travel. It gets too confusing. People get really arsy over trying to break it all down, and it's rarely done well. But this was done fantastically. Not once was I sat there confused. Not once did I not know what was going on. And it had fantastic characters. It had a whole range. It had drag queens. It had a girl who is trying to sort of break away from the chains of her past, only she then ends up like using all of those chains to solve this current problem. And it's got a really well written romance. It had me laughing out loud, it had me swooning, it had me melting, and it had, I would say, a mostly satisfying ending. There was like, I kind of wanted a little bit more from the ending, but for a standalone, I think it did fantastic. I think I read this in a day, and it's by far the best of the romances that I've read this year, and I am here for it. And I love this colour scheme. This book, I love it. Everything about it. It was so good. And has definitely cemented Casey to me as a Insta-buy author. I know she's got another book coming out next year and I've already pre-ordered it, so. We then have, I think this was book of the month for July, and that is Alice by Christina Henry. And I wanted to reread this because I got The Looking Glass earlier this year and I read that and I thought it was really, really good. And I remembered that when I read this series originally, I didn't like the second book. So I thought it'd be nice to go back, reread Alice and see if I do still love it as much as I did the first time. Yes, I did. Hatcher is probably one of my all-time favourite characters, and Alice is just so well written. The trauma is well done, the deep, the dark. This again is very adult. It's not for the light-hearted. It features themes of sexual assault, and again it's got that kind of redemption. I've noticed a lot of my favourite reads seem to be characters who are finding their strength and regaining their power after something horrific has happened to them. So I'm starting to notice this seems to be a theme where someone's taking back their life and taking back what was stolen from them. Just the way that kind of the world is written in this is so spectacularly done. I can't even describe it without giving stuff away. But if you like dark retellings and if you like brutal thrill of a ride with a fantastic romance and a love interest who isn't all that he seems and who will literally kill for you, you want to read Alice, because it is dark, it is gritty, and the best retelling I've ever read. We then have my book of the month for February. This book destroyed me multiple times. to the point I was on the bus crying so hard somebody came over and asked if I was okay. And when I told them that I was reading a really good book, that I'd got to a really super emotional scene, they backed away very carefully from the crazy lady sobbing over a book. And that book was Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. I've recommended this now to 3 different people. 2 of those 3 have read it. 2 of those 3 are trans. 2 of those 3 had similar reactions to me when reading it for different reasons to me, but also similar reasons to me, like the emotions of it and the story itself. But then for those that I recommended it to, both of them said that this book kind of resonated with them and their story and reflected how they feel quite a lot, which gave them emotions on top of everything else. And Aidan themselves is also trans and is non-binary, and just this book highlighted so many things that I didn't know about Latin culture, and it taught me about a holiday I didn't really know much about, but it also had a really beautiful, unique magic. And you've got Yadriel, who is told by his community that he can't be a brujo because he is a girl, and they don't accept that he is they still use his dead name on occasion, and they still refer to him as she and things like that. He gets really fed up, so he and his best friend Maritza break into the church. He does the ceremony for himself, becomes a brujo, and then his cousin is murdered. And to try and find out who killed his cousin, he decides to resurrect said cousin to, like, his ghost in order to find out what happened to him and track everything down. Unfortunately, he does summon a ghost, but it's not his cousin. It's a lad from his school who, to his knowledge, was alive and well just a couple of hours earlier. So it leads them on this chase, and there's this beautiful romance. And what I love is Julian. I actually tweeted to Aidan Thomas asking if Julian was ADHD, because there was a lot of those subtle nuances there, and they came back and they were like, yes, he is. So I got extremely excited about that, because again, it was that kind of positive ADHD rep that I've not really seen a lot of. And I loved this book. I think there is something for everyone, and I absolutely loved everything about this. Whether you like stories centered around Latin culture, whether you want to read LGBT, whether you like different magic, this book has got it for you. The next book on the list is the biggest book that I've read this year. I think it's the biggest book I have ever read in my life, and that book is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I picked this up because it sounded great, and again, it was one that, even though it's a fae book, it also has angels, which is kind of one of my big things. And I was like, right, let's try. And I was hooked in the first chapter, and there's a couple of parts where I feel it gets a bit slow and a bit draggy, but other than that, this book, every single page kept me interested, it kept me invested. There are at least 3 occasions where this book had me crying, and when I finished this book, I closed it, walked downstairs, burst into tears, and spent the next 20 minutes unable to stop, because it just took me on such an emotional ride. This was actually the first book that I read this year, and yeah, I've listened to the audiobook, I've read it physically, and it was so good, so emotional. And what I like is it doesn't come into the action 2 years after the big event that happened. It actually starts 2 years in the past. You go through the trauma with the main character, and then it flashes forward to the 2 years, and then you've got her working through it all. So I feel like it made it a much more enjoyable read, in that you aren't just getting told what happened, you actually experienced what happened, and I think it had a much bigger emotional impact because of that. But yeah, this book, definitely, it had fantastic world building, it introduced brilliant characters, it destroyed me emotionally, and the second book comes out in February, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. So yeah, this one just took me on a hell of a ride, an emotional journey that I will not forget, and for Being the first book in a series, I was a little bit intimidated by the size of it, but once I got started reading, I kind of just got lost in the story, and I am super excited to find out what's next. And then we finally reached the end of the list, is The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. Now, if you watched yesterday's video, you'll know why I love this so much, so I'm not going to go into it again, but for those who haven't watched yesterday's video, I will just very quickly say it has the best ADHD rep I have ever read in my life. I felt seen, I felt heard. Everything about this book just made me smile. I love that the main character has just decided, I'm going to be a superhero now, and goes from being a fan fiction writer to actively trying to be a superhero. And it was just one of the most fun books that I read this year. Definitely, for me, as someone with ADHD who very rarely sees open representation, it was incredible. 10 out of 10. And I started the second book, which had me howling with laughter at one scene in the first couple of chapters, and I thought I was going to die from like hyperventilation because it was so funny. So I can't wait to continue reading that into the new year. That is my list of the best books of 2021. Some of those were books of the month. Some of them were not books of the month, so I thought I'd show you a little bit of variety and show you the books that may not have been book of the month but were still in that top tier, god tier books for me for this year. Which of these books do you think I'm going to choose as my book of the year? I'm still not entirely convinced. There are two that I've been kind of torn between, and there is another one that I read this month that has snuck itself up into the very top, but I haven't included it in this list because I'll be talking about it in my December wrap up. And yeah, so let me know, what do you think I'm going to choose? What would you choose out of that list, and what is your book of the year if you already know? Very, very soon I will be doing my actual showdown for the year, where I will take you through every month what the book of the month was, and then take you through my showdown process and eliminate each book until we finally choose the book of the year. And then we'll just do a little bit of a reading wrap up, go through my Goodreads and my other goals, see if I hit all of them, and then start setting goals ready for 2022. So that's going to be the next video, but that's going to be in a few days. I'm going to take a break, I'm going to enjoy Christmas, spend some time with my loved ones. Then I will be back with that wrap up, my December wrap up, setting my goals for January. And then going into January, I have a whole host of new things I'm really excited for, and I'm hoping are just going to help build this channel, because next year is the year of growth. I hope you have a fantastic time, take a well-earned break, stay safe, stay good, get everything that you wish for, and I will see you, not in the new year, I'll see you this year, but I'll see you on the other side of Christmas, when I will be potentially a lot fatter because I would have eaten my weight in chocolate. See you soon. Have a good time. Bye.